Hello, my name is Chi Din. I'm with Avignon Realty Coaching and Training. Today, we will go over the information about brokerage services. And this is a Texas law requires that all real estate license holders to give the following information about brokerage services to prospective buyers, tenants, sellers, and landlords. We'll be going over paragraph by paragraph, so that way you really all the details of this information about brokerage services. First of all, here are types of real estate license holders. A broker is responsible for all brokerage activities, including acts performed by sales agents sponsored by the broker. Then we have a sales agent must be sponsored by a broker and works with clients on behalf of the broker. So that is the types of real estate license holders: broker and sales agent. Then we have a broker's minimum duties required by law. A client is the person or party that the broker represents. First, put the interests of the client above all others, including the broker's own interests. Inform the client of any material information about the property or transaction received by the broker. Answer the client's questions and present any offer to or counteroffer from the client, and treat all parties to a real estate transaction honestly and fairly. And these are minimum duties required by law from the broker. Now we have a license holder can represent a party in a real estate transaction. These are who they can represent. A license holder can represent as an agent for owner. That's representing the seller or landlord. So the broker becomes the property owner's agent through an agreement with the owner, usually in a written listing to sell or property management agreement. As owner's agent must perform the broker's minimum duties above, it must inform the owner of any material information about the property or transaction known by the agent, including information disclosed to the agent or sub-agent by the buyer or buyer's agent. Next, license holder can represent as agent for buyer tenant. So the broker becomes the buyer tenant's agent by agreeing to represent the buyer, usually through a written representation agreement. A buyer's agent must perform the broker's minimum duties above and must inform the buyer of any material information about the property or transaction known by the agent, including information disclosed to the agent by the seller or seller's agent. And then there's also as agent for both, intermediary. To act as an intermediary between the parties, the broker must first obtain the written agreement of each party to the transaction. And the written agreement must state who will pay the broker in conspicuous, bold, or underlined print, set forth the broker's obligations as an intermediary. A broker who acts as intermediary must treat all parties to the transaction impartially and fairly. May, with the parties' written consent, appoint a different license holder associated with the broker to each party, owner, and buyer to communicate with, provide opinions and advice to, and carry out the instructions of each party of the transaction. Must not, unless specifically authorized in writing to do so by the party, disclose that the owner will accept a price less than the written asking price, that the buyer or tenant will pay a price greater than the price submitted in a written offer, and any confidential information or any other information that a party specifically instructs the broker in writing not to disclose unless required to do so by law. Now we're going to look at sub-agent. As a sub-agent, a license holder acts as a sub-agent when aiding a buyer in a transaction without an agreement to represent the buyer. A sub-agent can assist a buyer, but does not represent the buyer and must place the interests of the owner first. To avoid disputes, all agreements between you and a broker should be in writing and clearly established. The broker's duties and responsibilities to you and your obligation under the representation agreement, and who will pay the broker for services provided to you, when payment will be made, and how the payment will be calculated. License holder contact information. This notice is being provided for information purposes. It does not create an obligation for you to use the broker services. Please acknowledge receipt of this notice below and retain a copy of your records. So here you have licensed broker, broker firm name or primary assumed business name, license number, email, and phone number. And then there's also a place for designated broker, a firm, license, email, and phone number. And then there's also a place for licensed supervisor of sales agent, associate, license number, email, phone number. And then there's a place for sales agent, associate's name, license number, email, phone. And then buyer, tenant, seller, landlord initials. There are places for buyer, tenant, seller, landlord initials, and date. That is the information about brokerage services. If you have any questions or there's an area that you're not clear, I recommend you speak to your broker and mentor. And thank you.